The closing comments tonight will be at 7:30. We have to be out of the room at 7:40, so we have a limited amount of time once we get to questions and answers. There will be a question and answer period. We have two people with microphones who can come to you. The only thing I would ask is be ready with your question when we come, because we're going to have more questions and more people who want to talk at the time, so we're going to try to get as many people in as possible. And I'll remind you of that when we get to the question and answer period. We have three speakers who will begin with opening comments. Then we're scheduled to have about 40 minutes for question and answer for our panelists. I'll introduce the panelists after we've heard from our opening speakers. By the way, my name is Kyle Kellums. I'm with KUAF Radio. First, we're going to hear from Mayor Lionel Jordan. He was first elected mayor of Fayetteville in November 2008, re-elected in November 2012. Instrumental in introducing the Fayetteville City Council to the City Council, the now standing resolution to oppose the permitting and operation of the hog facility that we are discussing here tonight. One note about Mayor Jordan, he has another official function to attend tonight, so he will be leaving at 7 o'clock. Mayor Jordan.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good. I certainly want to thank for being invited to speak tonight. It's certainly an honor and privilege to sit on such a distinguished panel. The Fayetteville Public Library, I want to thank them for providing the room, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And some of the things I want to talk about tonight is one of the reasons that brought about the resolution that came forward. My family has lived in northwest Arkansas for 6 generations. And we were primarily farming folks. I became very interested in protecting water quality and environmental issues from someone that you're very familiar with, who is Neil Compton, who fought to preserve the Buffalo River. That's where I really got interested in the Buffalo River. My uncle, in my first camping trip, took me to the Buffalo River, to Steel Creek, and we camped for about a week. And from that point in time on, I had a love for the outdoors and camping and water quality and preserving. Neil Compton spent most of his life, adult life, working on preserving that river, and it became, in 1972, the first national river park in the United States. You know, in studying, in the last couple of years, I've studied hog farming, because it was brought up at the U.S. Conference of Mayors that I attended, and some of the mayors from North Carolina was very concerned about it. And after reading about it and studying about it, I became very concerned about it as well. The Buffalo River is the national heritage for not only us, but our children and our children's children. And I believe that we as citizens must defend, protect, and preserve the water quality of the Buffalo River. In studying the economic end of it, I saw that we had about 1 million folks going to the Buffalo River area and spending about $38 million. But there's another price that we pay. There's another cost involved, and that's the human cost. The cost on our environment and our air quality and our water quality. So when I saw that they were about to put a hog farm near the Buffalo River, I went to the city attorney and we began to draw up a resolution. Sarah Marsh, who's probably in this room somewhere tonight, said that she would sponsor that, and I certainly offered to co-sponsor that resolution. We took it to the city council and they passed it unanimously. Because we know how vital and how important that river is. You know, I have said that we've lived here 6 generations, and I've been camping along that Buffalo River for 50 years. And the last thing I really want to do is to sit at my campsite and smell hog waste. and see that river polluted. Now, there's a thing that my grandfather used to say, well, some things just don't fit. And that whole farm just don't fit, folks. It just doesn't. So we owe that river, as I've said, not only to ourselves, but to our children and our children's children. Let's save it, let's preserve it, let's protect it. Thank you.
Our next opening speaker is Bob Cross. He's currently the president of the Ozark Society, an emeritus research professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Arkansas. Prior to teaching, he worked in the industry with jobs in research, engineering, and administration in the field of membrane separations, in the applications of water and waste treatment, food and pharmaceutical processing. His primary off-duty interest, hiking. He does lead hikes for the Ozark Society and the Appalachian Mountain Club. Bob Cross.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to read some of my talk. The reason for this, Tammy gave me some allotted time that I cannot exceed. She has a group of bouncers and ruffians prepared to haul me off the podium here if I speak too long. I wanted to, a lot of Ozark Society people are writing letters and making phone calls about this situation. I'd like to introduce a couple of people if they're in the room. Dwayne Vochin, is he here? Is Dwayne? Okay, Dwayne's done a lot of work on this project. He prepared this fact sheet that I think many of you received when you came in. And did Alice Andrews arrive? There's Dwayne. Would you raise your hand? Okay. Did Alice arrive? Anyway, Alice is our past president and current conservation chair, and I don't believe she's here yet. Anyway, as Mayor Jordan alluded to part of this, the Ozark Society was founded 61 years ago this month and led the fight to prevent 2 dams from being built on the Buffalo with the help of other organizations and many individuals. So even after the Corps of Engineers dropped their plans to build the dam, there was another fight, and that was to get the Buffalo permanently protected. And that happened in 1972 when through and get this, through a bipartisan effort by the Arkansas congressional delegation, Democrats and Republicans, this became the Buffalo National River administered by the National Park Service. The bill was signed by President Nixon in 1972. So last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Ozark Society, the 40th anniversary of Buffalo National River, and the 100th birthday of our founder, Neil Compton.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but could you talk into the mic real close, because we can't hear it all out there, and we're very interested if you talk right to the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll try. So, part of our ongoing mission is to continue to protect the buffalo. So over the years, through comments and actions, we have done what we could to prevent overuse of the river, to protect the wilderness areas, to build and maintain trails, and I see our chief trail builder and who's done a lot of other things for the Buffalo River sitting back there, Ken Smith. Ken. Park Service on conservation projects. The biggest issue probably to come up was another dam project which came up in the late 1990s when the Corps of Engineers planned to dam Bear Creek a Buffalo River tributary to provide an additional water supply for Searcy County. This would have altered the flow from this tributary and changed the temperature of the river, changing the aquatic life. So but the Corps dropped this project after a lawsuit was filed by the Ozark Society along with the Sierra Club, the Arkansas Canoe Club, the Arkansas Wildlife Federation, and several national groups, including the National Parks Conservation Association. But now we have probably the biggest challenge of them all that the Arkansas has faced and even the nation is facing, and that's the hog farm in Mount Judy. So this farm, or CAFO, which stands for Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation. Many of you are aware of the details. You have them on, many of them on the fact sheet. I'll repeat them briefly. If this goes to full capacity, there will be 6,500 hogs weighing an average of 150 pounds, 2,100,000 gallons of waste per year. The waste will be spread on 17 fields, having a total acreage of 630 acres, 11 of which are right adjacent, right on Big Creek, a Buffalo River tributary. The Buffalo is 5.7 miles away. Before spreading, the waste is in 2 ponds, which it's flushed out of the barns into the ponds. These are clay-lined, and the engineering design even allows for, initially, for 6,000 gallons per day leakage through the bottom of the ponds, which even that, if it kept up for the year, would be more than the waste that's generated. The ponds are uphill from Big Creek, which is 2,100 feet away. These ponds are 3,600 feet west of Mount Judy, and there is no required odor prevention or suppression by the ADEQ permit. And the prevailing winds are toward the school, the school in Mount Judy. There are also 3 of the fields for spreading are right up against Mount Judy. One of them is probably a little over 1,000 feet from the school. So the farm is a huge problem, not only now, but because it opens the door for similar installations in the future. So in my opinion, the biggest threat and how the river could become impaired, and it was stated by a friend of mine at the university, a professor of geology, who is an expert in the geology in Newton County. And his statement was that of the possible locations for this farm in Arkansas, the one chosen is the absolute worst. And why? Because, which he did when he looked at the USGS geological map, the Mount Judy area, and you match this up with where the farm is and where the fields are, the rock layer, which the uppermost rock layer just below the soil, is Boone limestone, every bit of it. And Boone limestone, for if you're a geologist in the crowd, when exposed to water forms karst. And karst is what has caused the 8,000 caves that are in the Ozarks, the numerous sinkholes, and is a fractured and porous surface. So if the leakage from the ponds, of the 2 million gallons that doesn't evaporate, that goes into the soil, even though it's partially treated by the plants, there will be a pathway to the wells, to the springs, to the groundwater, and to Big Creek, and then to the Buffalo. And of course, the stuff in this waste is not only nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen, it's hormones, it's pathogens, it's cryptosporidium, it's heavy metals, things that are in the animal feed. So it's a mishmash of things we don't want in our buffalo. So what's the Ozark Society doing? On our Facebook page, we've had messages, why are you planning hikes when you should be preventing this farm from operating? And we're trying to work in 4 different areas. First of all, we're challenging the environmental assessment that the Farm Services Agency, which is the agency of the government, of the Department of Agriculture, that is guaranteeing the loan that the C&W hog farms received. The environmental assessment is seriously flawed, probably illegal. Kevin Cherie, the superintendent of the Buffalo National River, pointed out 45 things that were wrong with it. And we're probably going to court over that. And there will probably be an announcement next week on the first step on that. So those are things I probably shouldn't give away, but it's just, it's probably going to happen. We're working with the Buffalo River Watershed Alliance, not directly, it's not a incorporated organization, but their members who live on the Buffalo would have standing in this situation. The Ozark Society has standing because we have members that hike and canoe and camp and on the river. We're working with other national organizations. You'd recognize the name if I could tell you. The only one I could mention is the National Parks Conservation Association, which we also worked with back in the Bear Creek Dam program. The other area we're trying to do something with is ADEQ, and that's difficult. Alice Andrews and I were in North Little Rock yesterday talking to their director, Teresa Marks. I talked with we talked with Teresa about this geology information, and I think the sad thing about it, I don't think they had heard anything about geology before. And I mean about geology relative to this farm. So, but they immediately launched into reasons why the geology made no difference. So, but in a way their hands are tied. The federal government has a general permit that as long as the farm meets the basic conditions for that, the state agency almost has to approve it. But it's, we're still continuing to look at whether there are openings there. We've tried to talk to Cargill. I've talked to a couple of their people, but generally they're not returning phone calls. And I understand they hate bad publicity, but they believe the Arkansas thing will blow over. But it's our job to be sure it doesn't blow over and hopefully rises to a national issue. Lastly, we're going to look at a process called third-party rulemaking to where we go before the Arkansas Pollution Control and Ecology Commission and try to get the Buffalo River watershed exempt from this sort of thing again. It's maybe unlikely. We're try it. Our lawyer is crafting language for that now. So anyway, thanks for your attention, and if you have questions, I'll try to answer them at the
We have one more speaker before we go to the question and answer period, and that is Terry Spence. Terry is a second-generation farmer in northeast Missouri. He's been active in the factory farm issue since 1993, that's 20 years. As an independent consultant for the Socially Responsible Agricultural Project, he focuses on working with rural citizens and groups throughout the U.S. and Canada that are feeling an impact by the agricultural operations. He's also president of Citizens Legal Environmental Action Network, Clean and Family Farms for the Future, that's FFFF. He's a certified level 3 volunteer water quality monitor for a Missouri stream team. Terry?
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here this evening and be sitting with the mayor, Mayor Jordan, and the rest of you here. I visited quite a little bit in the last few days with a lot of people here. I'm here as a guest. I've gotten several calls from Arkansas to see if there's any way that I could come down and assist in any way. And most of my work with the Social Responsible Agriculture Project is in organizing, but from the look at this audience, there's not much organizing to do over the situation, but we're going to continue on. I am a family farmer in Missouri. I've got 400 acres, a beef cow-calf operation. For the past 18 years, I've been fighting this type of facility in Missouri. I'll just skip right onto it here, if I can find my tab here. Okay. But anyhow, I will get into just a few photos of, I have 80,000 head of hogs and 72 buildings 2 miles from my property line to the south of me. And in no way am I referencing this in comparison to this operation here, but the only reason that I'm putting these photos up is just to show, what's happened from this facility over the past several years. This is the facility next to me, 72 buildings. It's on 3,000 acres. This is a satellite shot of the facility. My farm is up to the very top, just past that lagoon there on the very top of the... I'm not having very good luck here getting this thing to go as I wanted to. Oh, this one? Okay.
Like your Tammy Graham.
Now I know that, through the ADEQ here and all through the permitting process, they're probably saying, this is a no discharge facility, which, there shouldn't be any problems. But as we all know through time, I don't care how closely it's regulated, how closely it's permitted, there is human error, there is mechanical error involved, whether it's a pipe rupture, hose exploding, or something just absolutely leaking. But this is the type of, in our area, this is what we have coped with. You can see in these pictures of spray going up into the trees. Is this a nutrient management plan is that helping the trees or is it killing the trees? In other words, it was primarily just dumping, is what it amounted to. This is other types of application. I don't know how this is going to be applied down here from this facility, whether it's going to be tanker trucks hauling or how it's going to be applied. But the end results of all of this, these are pictures taken in 2008 by the facility next to me. They're kind of crowded pictures, but if you see the stuff that looks with foam on it and looks like tea, that is from over applications that's heading down the tributaries from lands that was over applied on. And in Missouri we got pretty good soil. I mean, we got deep clay down underneath, but we have topsoil. So you consider, if there's over applications in this karst of an area with very little topsoil on it, it's for sure going to end up going down to the bedrock and right down to the streams. And this is the results. Back in, I believe it was 1996, we had 11 miles of a main tributary that killed everything. Just because of over application or a spill or a human error or a mechanical error. This is what we see on a routine basis is there's 80,000 head of hogs that usually there's 3 semi-loads a week from this facility of dead hogs. Goes right through the main street of our town, Unionville, Missouri. No tarp, no nothing, just dead hogs flopped over the side, going down to be processed and ground up and probably put back into some type of feed again. The hogs that this guy where these hogs was in a ditch, he got corrected, but this wasn't from this facility, it was from a contract operation that we found out was just putting them in. So, you know, and again, I'm not saying that this is how this operation is going to operate, but our biggest issue, I've been in litigation for 17 years, all the way through the county, the State Court of Appeals, through a Federal Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act suit with this company, and we have made a lot of adjustments in their applications and how they handle their waste, and created a few new technologies, but what remains is what you see in this picture here. We still have the issue of high compounds of odor and flies. That is humongous. We have people that live within a half a mile of these facilities, and you know, we're very concerned about their health in the years to come. In reality, this really boils down to about, like, you know, this type of operations boils back to like in the coal mining days. The coal miners worked in the mine, never thought nothing about it until about 40 years later. And then, you know, here we start developing lung problems and this and that, and I really foresee, you know, this happening in the future. I've been on an advisory board, was on for 4 years at Center for a Livable Future at Johns Hopkins, and they do terrific research, and I think you can go in and look at any of the research on whether it's poultry farms or hog farms, and you can find out peer-reviewed studies that is not bought and paid for like some land-grant universities' research is. It's solid. And I think really the end result when you're discussing this, you know, on the benefits to local communities such as yours here or in Missouri or any other state is, in 2006, the Attorney General of North Dakota had 56 studies analyzed that's over the last 5 decades. 14 had some detrimental effects, examining the consequences of industrial farming on rural communities were evaluated. 82% of those studies found adverse impacts or indicators of community well-being. That is a lot of studies over 5 decades, and that's not including the most recent from 2006. But I think the main aspect is from my region. I've been in a lot of states on a lot of these issues, on these type of confinements, whether it's poultry or whatever, trying to work with communities and stuff. But not one single community where CAFOs present a significant segment of the local economy is looked upon today as a model of success or prosperity for the locality for those that reside within that area. So you can read the rest of that. That's just kind of a wrap-up that I throw together. But you know, I'm so proud to be here this evening because I've been through this many times in my area with community and members and the pros and the cons and all this and that. But you know, the reality is this is going to split and divide your community forever. And that is the sad part, whether this goes away or whether it stays. It has already had a major effect on this community. And all I can say is shame on you, Cargill. I drove around the facility yesterday. Couldn't get close to it, but I was enough hills far away to see the barn setting there. And it's beyond me. Why? Why would you try to put a facility here? The roads, the situation, the karst area, the Buffalo River, something that is, as the mayor said, is, you know, it's prestigious. It's something that will never be here again if it's polluted. So, you know, I would hope that Cargill, you know, I'm a farmer myself. I understand farming. I understand the hard times in farming and the necessity, you know, to look for alternatives. But this is not an alternative to be looking at. not to be strapped to a contract under an integrator, that if this is all they care about is ruining some of the most precious things in a community, it's wrong. It's totally wrong. So I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. As I said, I'm an outsider. I'm a guest here. But I'm pleased to be here with you all here this evening. And, you know, I want to be here for you and help what I can, but you as citizens live here. You're going to have to deal with it. And you're doing the best thing you can with all the least notification that you received on this. It's after the fact. But pressure has got to go on, and I think, as been stated earlier, this isn't going to end now, probably next month. This may go on 5 years. So Cargill, just as well get ramped up, because this is far from over. Far from over. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce the rest of the panelists who are up here to take your questions in a moment. A couple of other people I want to recognize. Bob already mentioned that Ken Smith is in the audience. Also here tonight is Ellen Compton, who is the daughter of Dr. Neil Compton, and they were instrumental in the process of getting the river eventually declared a national river. They're in the audience tonight. I'm going to introduce the panelists that have not already been introduced, and I'm going to go from left toward me. So we'll start all the way down there at the piano, and there are several different areas of expertise of people who can answer your questions. On the farthest left is Paul Lowry. He has a master's in geology from the University of Arkansas. He's been teaching at Northwest Arkansas Community College since 1996. His classes include physical geology, environmental biology, environmental management, and introduction to geographic information systems. He's explored from top to bottom most of the hollows of the upper Buffalo from Dixon Ford to Boxley and several downstream. Next to him is Sonia Hausman. She is Dr. Sonia Hausman, an environmental scientist specializing in the study of long-term water quality changes inferred from algae deposits in lake sediments. She and her research group studied human impact on Beaver Lake in Arkansas, floodplain lakes at the Lower White River, lakes in the Arctic, in the boreal forests, and the European Alps. At the University of Arkansas, she taught pollution of lakes and rivers, taxonomy and ecology of algae, and conservation of natural resources. Next to her, Tom McKinney. He's been active with the Arkansas Sierra Club since 1975, specializes in the protection of Arkansas forests and streams. The current efforts of the Arkansas Sierra Club are directed towards stopping the conversion of the Ozark and Ouachita National Forests from a moist upland hardwood and mixed pine forest to a dry oak savanna as a result of extensive logging and burning. They are also working on designated additional wild and scenic streams in the state, as well as setting Lee Creek aside as a better protected waterway. Oh, Greg's over there, okay. Skipping over, Mr. Spence, who we just heard from, is Debbie Doss, Chair of the Arkansas Conservation Coalition, Environmental Caucus Chair of the Arkansas Citizens First Congress, Conservation Chair of the Arkansas Canoe Club, and a lifetime member of the Canoe Club and the Ozark Society. In 2006, she received the Arkansas Citizens First Congress Environmental Leadership Award and the Arkansas Watershed Advisory Group Clean Water Stronger Communities Award for her role in preserving Lee Creek. Next to her is Joe Neal. You'd think I'd have this memorized. Joe is a retired wildlife biologist with the USDA Forest Service in the Ouachita National Forest, currently visiting scholar in the Department of Biology Sciences at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, co-author of Arkansas Birds, published by the University Press. For over 2 decades, he's run a breeding bird survey for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the upper section of the Buffalo National River. And to my right, over here, raise your hand, Greg, is Greg Leding, a Democratic leader in the Arkansas House of Representatives. When was the last time you heard 7 introductions and the only one interrupted with applause was a politician? That doesn't happen. Greg serves on several legislative committees, including the House Committee on Agriculture, Forestry, and Economic Development. He introduced Bill HB 2252. Once signed into law, the measure will put in place stronger public notification requirements for future concentrated animal feeding operations. Those are our panelists, and we're ahead of schedule, which means we have a little over an hour for questions that can be directed to any of the panelists. Quick survey, just by show of hands, how many people here have a question they would like to ask? All right, my math tells me that we're going to have more questions than time. So I'm going to ask once again, reminding you, closing remarks are at 7:30, and we have to be out of this room at 7:40. So when one of Barbara or Janie come to you with a microphone, please go right to your question. That way we can get the most questions in. And I'm sorry, because there's such a demand, we're not going to have any follow-up. So have your question ready. We'd love to hear personal stories about the buffalo, but we can do that outside. And we'd love to hear pontifications, we can do that outside, but so we can get every question answered, I'd like to just go straight to the question. I'm not an intimidating guy, but I can be stern if I have to be. All right, first question, Jane.
Hi, I'm David Wright. I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas. From what I hear, there's already hogs going to Mount Judy and already there. I hear people say that this process was not legal, or that it was legal but unethical. Is there any legal standing that we have to verify these statements and to verify this process?
Greg, that might be to you. Legislator.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for being here, and thank you for the applause. It's my understanding that the farm went through its last inspection on April 11th, and I'm sure there's somebody here who can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, and that hogs did begin arriving that week after, so there should be hogs already on the farm. To my knowledge, they went through the process as it existed without any kind of shadowy business. I think the problem lied with the permitting process and not anything that the farm did. So as to legal standing, I'm not an attorney. Maybe there's someone here who can provide a better answer there. But again, the farm followed the process as it was. That's one thing we got to fix going forward, is we got to make the notification process stronger.
Anyone else on the panel going to weigh in on that? Okay. We'll go to the other side of the room. Barbara, you've got someone?
For anybody on the panel, I would like to hear what you think the most effective talking points in letter to the editor to embarrass Cargill most effectively.
All right. Anyone on the panel going to take that? And remind panelists that you have microphones in front of you, and so the people that are not in the room can hear. If you would put the microphone, oh, I get applause. If you would put the microphone close to you. Anyone want to take the talking points question? Tom McKinney is reaching for a microphone.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Up close to your mouth, Tom.
Thank you for the question. Is that better?
Even closer if possible.
Even closer.
There you go.
Is there a volume on this thing?
They have the volume in the back.
Okay, thank you. The handout that the Ozark Society put out is probably your best guide on how to address the issue. And I do not know if Cargill can be embarrassed enough to where they will change their mind. I certainly hope that they would be. Noting what a national treasure this is, noting the amount of money that it brings into the area, noting the history of the river, how many people go and visit it per year, is probably one of the better ways to address this. And not just to Cargill, you need to particularly send it out to our elected representatives. We have discovered over the years that as good as public comment has on issues, a lot of organizations by law have to solicit public comment, but they don't have to pay attention to it. As long as they meet the requirements for solicitation, that's it. And the intervention of the courts or federal congressmen or senators has more times than not actually pushed an issue towards our way. So I hope that will partially answer your question anyway. Thank you.
Any other panelists want to go in on that? Okay. This side of the room, Janie.
wondering if the water has been tested thus far and if we're going to keep tabs on the change of the water as the hogs continue to arrive and be there.
Dr. Hausman?
So the
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. So I'd like to address that question because water quality and ecological impact is my research field. And to my knowledge, the water quality testing does not include biological assessment, and that could be easily be done that you look at the microinvertebrates and the algae that grow in the lake, and they probably respond first on that because the manure is a fertilizer for plants, and so you would see that in the changing of the community composition of the algae, and algae are very good indicators for nutrients, and then you can even reconstruct how much phosphorus is in the water. And the advantage of biological organisms is that they integrate over time. You know, when you go there and take a spot sample, you might just miss the peak. It's different when they put in a monitoring station that you have continuously conductivity measurements. But to my knowledge, it's still open what they will do.
Any other comments from the panel? Bob?
The only monitoring that I know of right now, there are several stations on the Buffalo River. The closest one is where the Big Creek comes into the Buffalo. That is a manual place, and it is, I believe, only monitored quarterly. And they would be monitoring fecal coliform, probably nitrogen, phosphorus, and a chemical scan. So there will be a background of, you know, months and years there, but that's the only one I'm aware of.
I think it's this side of the room. Do you have? Well, no, she has the microphone there, so she's.
I'd like to ask the gentleman from Missouri, is there any history of operations like this being stopped once they've already gone as far as this one has gone? And also, I don't know if there's going to be an announcement of the meeting at ADEQ next Wednesday, 6 o'clock in Jasper. I guess our chance to say something back.
To my knowledge,
Like
in Missouri, I'm not certain of any operations being closed after the progress this far. I know I was an integral part of, in Illinois, there was a large dairy from California that came in and purchased land, constructed the buildings, had pretty much well in operation, but after being forced to do a karst dye study, they ended up tearing the buildings down and moved everything out. The land is still standing.
This side of the room. Jenny's going to someone.
I'd like to follow this up on Terry's. I'm probably the only person sitting in this room that has had direct experience with this type of operation. I'm from Stuttgart, of all places that you can find a place like this. And I had one of the first confinement feedlots in the state of Arkansas, this type of feedlot. It was predecessor to the large operations like this. And whatever you do, stay on the course and try to get this thing stopped. We shut ours down after a period of time, but the pictures that you're seeing on there that Terry showed were exactly what you're going to be looking at. It'll kill the fish in your streams. it'll run into the Buffalo River, and you'll have increase in the solids, and the ADEQ or the pollution control people will just gradually increase the amount of fecal content or solids that will be eligible for the river. So whatever you do, stay the course and get this thing stopped, because we were producing at that time about 1,000 head a year, and we were feeding them completely out. And it was total confinement, just like this. The principles are identical to this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stay the course.
Just a brief question. Given the late hour and the fact that the farm is so far along, has anybody considered organizing a direct boycott of Cargill and with social media?
Is there anyone on the panel who will respond to that? Yay, nay, no one? That may be your answer. No one here?
I think it's a good idea.
All right. Jay, this side of the room?
Can I say something about that boycott thing? Those of us sometimes who are interested in doing such a thing, it's hard for us to know where their fingers are, a big corporation like that. You know, am I buying Cargill? Am I not? Am I buying a subsidiary of Cargill? It's really difficult to tell. It'd be nice if someone came out with that type of fact sheet. If it already exists, then I apologize for being ignorant of it.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Jane?
I would like to add
Dr. Hausman?
here. So, I mean, it's important to follow up where that pork really ends. I mean, is it we that eat that pork, or does the pork get exported in other countries where environmental laws are less strict? And what we are transporting in form of meat is actually water, right to water, the water that's needed to feed the cattle and so. And this is an issue of international level and not just the U.S. or Arkansas issue. So, but so the boycott needs to be more international, not just on state levels.
Okay. What have other states with animal waste issues done to rid themselves of this problem?
What have other states done in this situation? Looks like.
I can only, I can only speak for Missouri. I mean, we've had a challenge for many years. We still retain our local control in Missouri, to where county commissions and also county health departments has the authority under Missouri statutes to not regulate these, but develop ordinances, you know, that will make them comply. We've been under attack for the past probably 10 or 12 years by industry to try to take away local control so they have free reign. At present, we probably still have anywhere from 15 to 18 counties that has a health ordinance that's either implemented by the county or by the health department in our state. And you know, this doesn't block a CAFO from coming in. All it does is set standards that they have to get. They do have to place a bonding. They have to comply and get a permit from the county health department and county commission to build this. But so far, where these health ordinances have been implemented in the counties, it has stopped the growth of these type of operations. And I've asked many times through the years, sometimes with Cargill representatives in the audience, you know, why would this stop you from putting animals in these counties where there's health ordinance? You know, the only logical explanation is, if there's a problem develops because of public health, who owns the animals? the farmer is reliable for all the waste, all the expenses, but who owns the animals that produce that? You know, and whether that would go to court, what the ruling would be, I don't know, but, you know, there's some type of a fear there that, you know, we will not go in where there's health ordinance. But so far, many of the states have lost their local control and it's been attacked, just like the other ADEQ bills that you're seeing in every state, trying to limit down any control on water quality, on anything, you know, to help industry gain a bigger fisthold in the rural areas. So, you know, that's all I can tell you. There's different things in different states, but in Missouri, that's what we've held on to as county health ordinances that they can do under the statute of the state of Missouri.
Bob, did you want to say something?
As I understand it, and my daughter's in North Carolina has had such problems that they now have a moratorium on any CAFO that's larger than 250 hogs.
Tom?
Yes, sir. There is a set pattern. The gentleman asked if other states had to deal with these issues, and if they did, how. It is a distinct pattern that these large corporations that set up these CAFOs basically shop from state to state. They will find the state with some of the weakest regulations. They will go in and inundate the area with that kind of operation until conditions get so bad that the citizens basically revolt and force the state to address it adequately or not, enough to the point where the CAFO operators don't see it as lucrative as it used to be. And then they will go on and look for another state. I don't think it is a coincidence that since the permitting regulations in the state of Arkansas have been, in my opinion, weakened. In other words, there is a general permit application that these corporations can apply for rather than individual site studies. And I'm very generalizing and simplifying, but the permitting requirements for the state have been weakened, and I don't think it is a coincidence that all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, we're finding this huge operation. It was a path of least resistance, and I think for Cargill, I think it's them trying to get a foot in the door, and if they can get this one in and keep it, then they'll really go after other areas.
Anyone else on the panel? Okay. What side of the room? It's this side of the room you've got, okay.
Hi, I'm LaJoyce Heflin Duncan, and I'm from West Fork, Arkansas, and I'm a third generation of farmers. We have a 220-acre farm with 40 head of cattle. I am in agreement with the water being clear, but my question to you all, and I want to ask Greg this, that are you aware that the Park Service has 2 wastewater discharge permits, and one of these can discharge up to 42,000 gallons of wastewater per day directly into the Buffalo River? And also, out of 37 sites, that 15 were closed because of 40% discharge from the potties, or what do you want to call it, into the river?
I didn't know that until about 3 weeks ago, and it was brought to my attention. But yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Well, I think that you need to test the water and see how it is doing now before you go any further, because there is discharges from the other cities around that area, and I don't have those right here with me, but that needs to be an issue to think about.
I agree.
All right. Let's see. It's this side of the room's turn.
My name is Susan Compton. I'm from Fayetteville. Several years ago, Tyson canceled its contracts with a number of hog farmers in Arkansas. They said, according to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, a story on a business farm page, said that they were canceling those contracts and leaving the farmers without contracts because
chemically precipitate out the phosphorus and then sell it as a solid fertilizer. Phosphorus is a non-renewable resource. We need it for agriculture. So and there should be, it should be possible to have a closed system where we don't lose the phosphorus. If they would produce the feed close to the farm, well, they already would have the manure, the fertilizer there. They don't have to use all the streets with the trucks. And in Europe, for example, the environmental laws are much stricter. The CAFOs have to be much smaller. And so, and I think there should be a way to eat pork and be sustainable.
Anybody else? Carl?
I just want to make sure that folks understand how a hog house of this size works. It's basically a giant flush toilet. You have the hogs living on one level, they basically crap through a grate, it goes to a lower level, and then they flush it out, just like a toilet. And they're increasing the volume of the waste 900%, not just 9 times, but 900%. You might go from 10 pounds of waste up to 100 pounds just because of the volume of the water and then the associated volume increase. And that is all due to their wanting to grow as many of these animals, any animal that they can, in a confined space. So just by the way they are raising the hogs, they are exponentially increasing the volume of waste that it generates.
All right. Anybody else on the panel? Next question. Back there.
It sounds like from what you're saying that in addition to being concerned about pollution of the buffalo, this hog farm is going to use a tremendous amount of water. And I'm just wondering where that comes from, because it's almost like putting a much larger town there than, what's the infrastructure for that?
Question, where will the water come from? Anyone?
One of the limiting factors of growth in Newton County has always been the availability of potable water. And for many people it was springs, wells, things like that. But the county has put in a new water tower, has drilled a water well outside of Deer, and has set up distribution lines throughout the county. So it looks like they're not only using it for drinking water, but now they're looking at an industrial use for that water as well.
I might add, I haven't really looked at the reality of this site, but what you was talking about, I know on the flush systems in Missouri that I've been around, it's not, fresh water is not used for flush. It's a urine and coming back off the surface of the lagoon, recycling into a flush system that takes the waste down. Now, it might be different here. I haven't looked at how this is done, but usually a flush system is recirculating the water off the top of the lagoon back for a flush and flushing it down. So, the water that would be used is normally just whatever is consumed by the animals in the facility.
I'm going to call an audible here. This gentleman said, you know where the water will?
It's coming from it's got a well underneath.
It has a well underneath?
It's well water.
It's well water?
Yes. Okay.
Can I ask how you know that?
I've actually been to the farm.
Okay. All right, another question?
Oh, can I go ahead and ask a question? My question would just be, can you tell me why no one from the farm was contacted to actually sit on the panel? Because there's a lot of misinformation that's up there about what is actually happening on that farm. And as being someone who's been there, it's a little frustrating because there's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of things that are going, and a follow-up to that is, can someone tell me actually how many sows are going to be on that farm? Because if you say 6,500, you're wrong. How many it's permitted for? So,
two questions.
We don't want any.
Farm Bureau, or anyone who had been to the farm?
It's 2,500.
2,500.
All right, 2,500 sows.
With a maximum of 10,000 animals at any peak period.
Wait.
2,500 sows.
Bob, could you say that into the microphone, please? Wait, we're getting a lot of people saying something and no one's saying it into the microphone so people can't hear.
He's got it right there.
He's got the answer.
And the answer is?
Microphone.
Well, I think it's 2,500 sows.
2,500 sows.
And 4,000 piglets or something. Is that right?
That is correct. All right. Next question. Gonna keep.
We didn't answer his question about
Why? So we would go to an organizer, perhaps. Anyone?
And were you contacted to have someone serve on the panel? We weren't contacted.
I would like to answer that.
Well,
When we
okay,
organized
quickly.
this meeting. We organized this meeting for the people of Fayetteville to gather facts about it. You feel like you're not represented. ADEQ is holding a meeting next week, a week from today, May 6th, in which the Buffalo River Alliance is not allowed to make their presentation. So this is something of a counter meeting. We really welcome your comments, and we're really glad that you are here today, and we appreciate that. And we hope at some future date we'll have something that maybe will resemble a debate, because some of the comments that have come from the ADEQ and the permitting process are definitely up for debate.
And I'm going to...
I have a question.
Okay, wait, hey, no, we're going to keep going to the panelists, but I will remind you that when we leave this room, public street over there, public forum, we can keep the conversation going, but... Okay, no, we can't go to KUAF, it's locked up. Maybe someday soon. We're going to go home after that. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, I have a tactical suggestion.
Well,
as far
30 seconds, because we're trying to get the questions in.
One sentence.
Okay.
As far as shining a light on Cargill that they don't want being shined on them, why don't we get somebody to call President Clinton and have him call 60 Minutes?
Question?
Well, I have two questions. First question is, our first suggestion is that I would like to ask everyone to treat anyone with a differing opinion with dignity and respect and the utmost honor. There are some farm families who believe very strongly about this. They may not believe the way I believe or others. And the second one, this is a very difficult idea for me.
And the people on the river, the visitors, we have thousands of people visiting the river every year, and the Park Service has closed down restrooms. But you know, so I hope when this discussion is done about this particular issue, we'll continue our enthusiasm for all of the problems that exist in the watersheds of our most pristine rivers.
Yeah, Joe?
This is a good point, but it falls into the realm of a red herring. Because the Park Service provides bathrooms all up and down the river. And the main problem that they're having with bathrooms on the river is, that's right, and that's why you should call your congressman and tell them to stop sitting on the Park Service, because that's why they're closed.
They're closed because of pollution.
The bathrooms are closed in the Park Service because of the sequestration. And the Park Service has made real efforts to provide facilities all up and down 125 miles of that river. And it's not the same thing as building a confined animal feeding operation.
Yeah.
I understand that. But this is the kind of argument that doesn't go anywhere when you say, well, what about the million people? Well, let's work on that. Like, let's make sure the Park Service has the funding that they need to serve us, who are taxpayers.
Inside of the room. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is for Mr. Letting, and this gentleman over here has a point. And the point is why we all booed and sighed is that we can't imagine losing access to our beautiful Buffalo River. You recently, our legislature approved $125 million of state funding to support a $1 billion steel plant in Mississippi County to create 500 jobs. Have you looked at the economic impact of us losing access to the Buffalo River from a tourism, from every other aspect, fishing, you name it. Have you looked at that? And the job loss there, and quality of life, etc. Where is our legislature on this extremely important issue? Where's the injunction?
I would say that in the legislative session that just wrapped up, we were facing a number of large issues, including the steel mill. One of the things we do plan to do in the interim is look at the potential effect. We tried to get a moratorium in place with House Bill 2252. Unfortunately, we were right at the very end of the session. We didn't get that moratorium in place, but we did. We've strengthened the notification requirements, and we've put together a 5-person panel that is going to look at the notification requirements going into the future so that we can come up with something that is stricter. But Representative Kelly Link, a Republican from Yaleville who makes his living in tourism, he's one of our biggest allies on this, as is Representative Warwick Saban, a Democrat from down in Little Rock. Representative David Branscombe, a Republican from Marshall, Arkansas, is also working with us on this. That is one of the things we plan to study in the interim, and we're already getting to work on May 21st and 22nd. The House Agriculture Committee is actually going to meet in Marshall for a 2-day tour of the river and the farm to begin that process. So that is something we're absolutely going to consider as we look to see what we might be able to do to fix this.
Okay, I think we're bouncing to each side. Who has our microphone? Oh, yeah. We're not going to get to everyone, I'm just warning you.
Hi, my name is Liz Lotman, and I'd like to welcome my neighbors down the road. I'm at Misty Creek at the junction of 123 and 374, and I'm really, really glad to meet y'all. I hope we get a chance to talk later. You know where I am. I just want to say thank everybody for being here, because when I first found out about this, it shocked me. I was worried about the tourism industry and how maybe one industry, I'm getting to that, can influence the rest of the industry. And my question is, as property owners and as people who have a small business there, I want to know information on what's being done for either an injunction or a way that if our property and our business is harmed, what can we do?
Anyone on the panel?
That's why we're so scared.
No recourse. Let's see, where's our traveling microphone? Oh, it's right there.
I always like to ask difficult questions to legislators. As a state senator in Missouri, we had a large confined operation coming in northwest Missouri, promised by a major producer of hogs. They were going to keep a slaughterhouse open, etc. We all like jobs. We all like economic development. But there were promises. In my experience in Missouri is there's not an agency in the world that could regulate that type of operation. The DNR cited this particular operation numerous times for the simple odor. I will tell you that this is going to be such a major problem, and the legislature of Arkansas, I doubt there's an agency is going to be able to regulate this operation, because you have to be able to put teeth into the action, and if you have an odor, you need to solve it. And it sounds like you have some very good statistics about how close this is and what the effects are going to be, and it's up to your legislature to solve the problem. I was a Farm Bureau member, and
okay, let's let Greg, because we've got precious little time.
I'm not sure there was a question there. You're asking of which agency would actually oversee this, and it's going to be ADEQ, and you're right, they're stretched pretty thin. They're short on people for all kinds of following up on this type of thing all across the state. That's one of the challenges we face, is making sure that they're equipped to do the job that we give them. I will say that depending on which side you're on this issue and other issues, people either think ADEQ is overbearing and does way too much, or doesn't do a thing. I sometimes find myself in a similar position, but I guarantee you they're doing everything they can with what they've got.
Joe Neal?
One of the things that's been really missing in the debate all along about this is that every time people from ADEQ, or if you've written Cargill, if you've gotten a response from Cargill about this, they all say the same thing. All the rules were followed, all the lines were filled in, all the boxes were checked, and that's it. So the point I just want to make, and just make it really quickly, is that the only thing that wasn't followed through here was common sense. And I've looked at hundreds of pages of documents that were submitted, and I'm not complaining about the fact that people are trying to make a living at Mount Judy. That's not my complaint. My complaint is that you have to use common sense when you think about this, and I looked at those documents, a lot of them. And you know, the Buffalo National River never comes up in any of those documents. It didn't come up in the environmental analysis done by FSA. It didn't come up with Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. And if you ask them directly, they've answered the questions about this, and they say, it wasn't an issue. So you laugh about it, but it's a technicality. And to me, that is what fundamentally underlines this whole thing. It's a lack of common sense in thinking about where to make the federal investment that's involved here, and the huge amount of personal investment that the farmers in Newton County that are involved with these farms have made themselves. So it's a lack of common sense.
Where's our microphone?
Hello, John Pennington, County Extension Agent for Agriculture and Water Quality in Washington County. And a question that I have of the panel, I wonder, is this really meant to protect the Buffalo River, or is this meant to bring awareness to CAFOs and attempt to stop CAFOs? And the reason I ask this question is because the Buffalo River has been impaired for a decade. It has been listed on the 303D list as impaired from a point source, a municipal discharge from the city of Marshall. And my question is, if you're really wanting to protect the Buffalo River, do you think picking a fight with agricultural producers that are meeting all the regulations and going beyond is going to help you achieve your goals? Or is it going to hold you back from actually being able to work with everybody to actually protect the river and address its existing impairments?
Responses? O'Neill?
Those are all good points, Mr. Pennington, but it doesn't mean that people shouldn't be concerned about this operation. And there are a number of battles that have to be dealt with about a national river. It's a big place, it involves a lot of people, it's not just Newton County, it's not just Northwest Arkansas, it's a national issue. And I couldn't agree with you more. There are the other point sources, and I could list a few more that are big problems from the biological viewpoint. The impact on birds from the different sources of pollution. There's a lot of good data on it now. But the fact that there is a point source of pollution someplace else doesn't mean that we shouldn't be dealing with the issue at Mount Judy. It means that it's a bigger issue than just one thing. And it took 10 years to stop the dams on the Buffalo River. And during that time, there were people in Newton County and in Searcy County and in Carroll County and in Madison County and other affected counties that wanted those dams built because they felt like it was the best thing to do. And that's the same situation with the problems with point source pollution that you're talking about, plus the potential problems with this hog farm. That they have a broad impact on the river. There are a lot of complicated issues, but if we don't stand up and make these issues clear and make clear that the public has a right to be heard here and to have an impact on it, then we're just going to have more of them, not less. I mean, if we follow what you're saying here, we should stop the concern about this animal operation and then go back and just work on this other issue. It's not logical to me. Okay, I see you shaking your head, so okay, I'll stop at that point. I've had this.
Anybody else on the panel? Want to respond to that? The microphone is somewhere, it's right here.
Hi, it was mentioned earlier that when the buffalo was declared, became a national river, that for some reason, I guess common sense at that time thought or dictated that we wouldn't need to look down the road this far and that this would ever happen. But I'm just curious as to why, this might be a moot question at this point, but why weren't certain things put in place at that time so these types of things couldn't occur later on?
Cross?
At that time.
Go. Yes?
There were safeguards put in the Enabling Act, and one of them was used in this lawsuit that we filed 12 years ago. It basically says that if they're not only in the National River itself, but on the tributaries, if there are water issues, that the National River Department of Interior can call the shots on that. And so there are quite a few safeguards in that original bill. And if we follow through with some of the things we were planning to do on this one, we will be using the Enabling Act as one of the arrows in the quiver, if you will.
Go. And then Tom.
And just one more thing, if you look at there's a really fine book by Dr. Neil Compton called The Battle for the Buffalo River. And I encourage you to take a look at it, but in the introduction, the new edition is out. It has an introduction by Ken Smith, who's here in the audience. And Ken and Dr. Compton all say the same thing. It's an ongoing issue. What the Buffalo River means to the public, all of the public, including the hog farmers in Newton County and chicken growers in northwest Arkansas and people that canoe and hike or bird watch like myself. And it's an ongoing issue. And Neil Compton said it was 40 years ago. Everybody knew it wasn't a closed issue. It just, the dams were finished and the park was created. But the public ownership in Newton and the Buffalo River watershed only amounts to 40% of the watershed. 60% of the Buffalo watershed is privately owned, and people have a right to make a living in that 60%. And that's where the contention will always be. How does the 40% that's in public ownership, that's federal in the Buffalo National River, state like Arkansas Game and Fish, and national forest land that's in the Buffalo River watershed, how does that 40% of the property in the watershed work with the 60% that's privately owned and where people need to make a living? And that's where the flashpoint is, and it's always going to be there. It's not going to end. If that hog farm shut down tomorrow, this issue will not go away because people need to make a living, and we have to find a way to balance the fact that it's a national river, that it's an important biological reserve, which we haven't covered tonight at all and don't have time to. And it has to be balanced with the fact that there are local people there and throughout the watershed who've got to be able to make a living, and we have to make sure that we support that right. But that doesn't mean we have to support every single activity.
Tom, then Dr. House.
Also, to kind of touch on the point that Joe brought up earlier, there was supposed to be a process in place where we should not have even reached this point, because the citizens are supposed to be given notice of any activity that has a detrimental environmental impact on the waters of the United States. The agency who put together the EA, the environmental assessment, were either dishonest or so totally incompetent that they didn't look a few miles down Big Creek and see that there's a national river down there, and the water flows downhill, and so the stuff that floats in the water. And they even listed the Buffalo National River as a participating agency, and that was really news to the Buffalo National River director, because this came out of the blue on him. So if the process had been followed properly, and if everybody here who usually gets notice of these matters through the Buffalo National River or the Soil Conservation Service, then this process would have begun a long time ago before any of these permits had been put forth, any money had been designated, any commitments had been made. And so the process, it did not work, and it's hurt everybody, not just the users of the buffalo and not just the folks who are have the hog farms now. And you know, I think that was a really, really important point that was not addressed in this whole process. Is the process, you know, did not work as it was supposed to, and I hope somebody pays for it, either losing their job or something.
Dr. Hausman?
So I'd like to address that point. So am I for the Buffalo River or CAFOs in general? So my point is, this is not just an issue concerning the Buffalo River. So personally I'm against unsustainable meat production, because we destroy our life support system, and it's happening everywhere on the entire globe. And that runoff phosphorus, it doesn't get assimilated in the stream, it just goes down to the wetland at the Lower White River, and the lakes there are around 400 natural lakes at the Lower White River cut-off meanders, and these lakes, they show a eutrophication, that means excess production or overproduction of algae because of too many nutrients since the mid-90s. And this wetland is a wetland of international importance according to the Convention of Ramsar, and the wetlands all over the globe show signs of water pollution, too much nutrients. And this November will be a meeting, an international wetland meeting addressing that. And so my point is that we have to look over the rim of the plate. It's not just the issue of the Buffalo River, it's an international issue. So we have population growth, and everybody wants to have a higher standard of living, and we need to apply common sense how we achieve that. And we have the technology to do that, we just need to do that.
One last question. This is the last one. We've got to be out of the building.
This is a question for Greg. At this point, what can we do to try to influence our legislature to, personally, I don't think CAFOs have a place in Arkansas. I don't think we want to end up like the other states that have run them out after they've been polluted. What can we do to pressure our representatives to look at this very closely and do something about it?
I would call them, write them, nag them constantly. Unfortunately, it is a little too late to do much in terms of the legislative session because we wrapped up. And while that's unfortunate for this issue, I think most of us would agree that it's a good thing we shut that down and got out of town last week. But like I said, we're going to be studying this actively throughout the interim. This isn't going to just be like these two meetings that I mentioned on May 21st and 22nd are not going to be the only two. Those are just the first two. There are going to be meetings throughout the interim. You can go, does everybody know how to, where the legislative calendar is accessible online? It's got to be the worst URL out there on the internet, but it's arcleg.state.ar.us. I don't even remember it. It's ridiculous. But you can Google. Okay, that's correct. You can Google it, so you'll be able to see all of the meetings. I post a lot of stuff to my accounts and my mailing list, letting people know where we're talking about this. But also, if you don't know who your representatives are, and sometimes when we get up here and the districts are smaller, it's a little bit harder to keep track. You can go to arkansashouse.org, and there's a little feature on there that will help you find your representative. The Senate makes it a little more difficult to figure out who they represent for all kinds of reasons. But so just figure out who your representatives are, call them, email them, write them. Handwritten letters or typed letters are a lot more effective than email. There are some legislators that don't ever check their email. But so phone calls and letters are the most effective ways.
I'd like to thank the panelists for being here tonight. I'd like to thank you as well. Special thanks to the Fayetteville Public Library that makes this room available for things like this, for things like Theater Squared. It's a great resource. We appreciate the Fayetteville Public Library very much. Still some closing comments. Hang on, hang on. I'm not the last thing up here. I do want to say, I know there were questions that didn't get asked, there were conversations that could be happening. We will have to exit the library because they do have to close. Plenty of public space out here if you want to have conversations, civil conversations, and questions. Thank you for your attention, and I believe we have closing comments from Tammy Graham. Thank you.
Times like this, makes me wish I'd gone to Toastmasters. So I want to tell y'all the story. We're done with all the technical questions and whatnot. And first off, though, I'd like to introduce the people that brought you here tonight. Margaret Britton. Where you at? Kim and Jane Yagee. You know I'm looking at you. Jenny Masuma. Get up here. Thank you.
I was hiding.
Yeah, a lot of good that did you. So I want to tell y'all the story of the how and why